What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing, and today it's time to talk about Equipoise, the favorite horsey steroid that you guys have heard of, and definitely a little bit of misinformation about that I wanted to clear up. So, if you guys like these little breakdowns of anabolics for rock climbing, please do not forget to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's let Dr. Tatum take it away for us.
Equipoise. It won't make you as hung as a horse, but it might make you as big as one. Whoa, Nelly! So giddy up and let's talk about it. Originally synthesized by Ciba Pharmaceuticals in 1949, Equipoise was initially developed for human use, but quickly found its a real niche in the veterinary world for bulking up horses.
So chances are, if you guys follow any of the popular horse races, the two most common horse steroids that I have heard of are Winstrol and Equipoise. And equine Equipoise, it's not a surprise there.
Literally. Yep, that majestic stallion in the stable is probably juicing harder than your gym's local Myco hern.
True.
Equipoise is essentially testosterone with a key structural tweak, specifically a double bond at its first carbon, making it less estrogenic and far less androgenic. The result? Slow, steady, lean muscle gains, solid strength, and great endurance, but without massive bloating or dramatic sides. It's kind of like testosterone went to therapy, calmed down, and got a steady job and stopped dating strippers. Bodybuilders appreciate Equipoise for its mild yet consistent anabolic effects, significantly increased appetite, hello bulking, and dramatically enhanced vascularity. It's often stacked with testosterone and mild orals for long, slow muscle accrual phases, where steady gains are preferred over explosive growth.
So as far as I am aware, there aren't any non-genomic factors with Equipoise, so you can't just take something like this pre-workout. It's something you'd want for an extended growth phase. Obviously, the appetite could potentially have its ups or downs depending on what you're looking for. If you're really trying to put on size, Equipoise is probably one of the more favored compounds. And it's also interchangeable with something like a primobolan because it significantly suppresses estradiol. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later.
Equipoise might not win sprint races, but it excels in the long haul. Now, let's talk downsides. Polycythemia. Equipoise is notorious for dramatically increasing red blood cell counts, making your blood thicker than grandma's oatmeal and seriously increasing the risk of blood clots.
So, as far as that goes, it's one of the most notorious compounds for increasing red blood cell count. Now, realistically, all anabolics do this. You're going to deal with this on testosterone, you're going to deal with this on Equipoise, you're going to deal with this on DECA, on Tren. That's just the nature of anything that's particularly anabolic, and it's going to drive red blood cell count. So, does it have a place? Well, yeah, I talked about this in my compounds I would take to climb Mount Everest. Equipoise is probably at the top of the charts. Providing you stay hydrated, if you're an athlete at elevation, awesome compound to run. Not only because it would potentially help give you some additional strength over the long duration of it to up your blood cell count. So, it's going to help you carry around your pack, your gear, stuff like that, which is cool. But the added red blood cell count can help breathe a little bit better at altitude too, which is sort of a double whammy. Do I think it has as much use for boulderers or sport climbers? Unless you needed it to lower estradiol, in which case there's other ways you could do that. Either you could use it with, or you could swap your testosterone for some, or you could include some primobolan, you can include some mastron to limit the aromatization, you could just take an AI. There's no mandatory reason to run EQ unless you just wanted to drive some more size as a boulderer. Let's keep going.
Anxiety. EQ anxiety is well documented.
True.
Some users report feeling restless or irritable, potentially from increased blood viscosity, estrogen depletion, or direct CNS effects.
Probably from the estrogen suppression, but most steroids do have some level of neurotoxicity, even at small doses. So some of the additional stress on the central nervous system isn't unreasonable. But for a lot of guys and a lot of friends of mine, EQ is one of their favorite secondary compounds.
Suppression of natural testosterone.
Obviously.
As with all anabolics, your own T production will be taking a sabbatical, requiring post-cycle therapy.
You shouldn't be touching any of these unless you're planning on being on TRT. If you want to do the post-cycle therapy route, God bless, but I am of the opinion that I'm in this game for life, so there will be times where I drop down to TRT, like the current moment, but the idea of me coming off anabolics seems unlikely at age 40 for me.
Therapy. Kidney stress. Increased blood pressure from thicker blood is never good news for kidney function long term. Bottom line,
By the way, as far as the kidney markers being hit, this is something that we see in the medical literature, but in all of the folks whose blood work that I've reviewed and folks that coaches I've talked to, it doesn't seem to show up. Obviously, you should be getting frequent blood work regardless, but this is one of those things that I've seen in the literature but have not seen in real life.
Equipoise offers steady, manageable gains with less estrogen drama and water retention, but it comes with some serious risks. But if you're willing to roll the dice with your blood thickness and your sanity, tread cautiously, get regular labs, donate blood, and stay hydrated. And hey, maybe leave the horse steroids and sea biscuit. That's Equipoise.
So one last thing I sort of want to mention, or there's two. Number one, if I personally were going to use Equipoise, and there might be a time that I use it during my next strength phase, it would probably be for me personally at the tail end of a cut for a peaking phase. And I'll sort of go into the how and the why. I would potentially swap this in place of a Masteron, and I would use that. For Masteron, you would limit the estrogen's aromatization, which would in turn keep you drier. I would ultimately leverage EQ in its place potentially to lower my estrogen as I get closer to a climb. I wouldn't do this for too long, but from a drying perspective, to limit the estrogen so I hold less water so that it's more likely that I send my boulder, that's a thing that I could potentially leverage. The reason I don't love that is I think it's better off personally to limit the aromatization with something like a Masteron versus actually just down-regulate and crush the estrogen on its own, because ultimately I still want estrogen for the collagen synthesis. Would it potentially be a wash? I don't know. The last thing I just sort of want to mention as it relates to Equipoise, if you hang out on the bro forums and you see some of the stuff in the bodybuilding space, I've seen also from coaches, doctors, things of that nature, this idea that Equipoise drives pro-collagen as high as 600%. I have never seen this in the literature. I have not seen this in animal models, in human models. I have not seen this, period. I will see it on YouTube, and I've actually reached out to doctors specifically to try to follow up on that. And when I've had them on the phone, they reached out to their ChatGPT bot that couldn't find all the research that I couldn't find, and I was super pissed. So is it possible that, EQ could actually increase collagen synthesis and we just haven't seen it in studies? Yeah, possibly. But based off of it being a testosterone derivative and testosterone having no significant impact on collagen synthesis, and also its mechanism of suppressing estrogen, I do not find this to be likely. Could it be? Maybe. But I haven't seen the study for it, and I'm not really willing to do a tendon biopsy on myself while running EQ in order to prove that. But if you are, God bless, and please let me know what that looks like afterwards. Because even if it did drive collagen, as some of the folks seem to be claiming, I would bet pretty strongly that it would probably have similar issues to what we see with nandrolone, where the excess collagen leads to over collagen deposition, which leads to a subpar lattice structure, which, as we know, you could potentially train out over time, but it's suboptimal, and I don't like the idea of any anabolics to drive collagen synthesis for a sustained period, except for Anavar. And even that, the literature is kind of iffy on until the new study coming out of USC, which we'll check back in on later. Anyway, that's a brief overview of Equipoise. I think it could potentially be leveraged for strength phases. It could potentially be leveraged for alpinism and mountaineering, and potentially for peaking phases, although I don't think it would be the best tool for the job. I think there are way better tools that I would put in its place. But yeah, if you guys like content like this, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Helps the channel tremendously. I'm back in the gym. I am doing some more board work, so you're going to be seeing more of that as well as my educational content. And yeah, definitely enjoying that. We've had some new subscribers. Welcome. It's great to have you. And if there are any other compounds that you guys want me to review, or if you guys are potentially interested in me in testing, please leave them in the comments below. By the way, there is a bunch of SLU-PP332 in my house. So much so that it is now possible for me to take milligrams instead of micrograms pre-workout. I'm going to be going into more depth about my experience on that, but I've been saying for the past probably 8 or 9 months that this is a top tier compound, and elevating the dose has only reinforced that for me. So expect more info about that soon. Also with some other climbers testing it, so definitely tell your friends. Anyways, this is Adam with Anabolic Climbing, wishing you guys good luck, happy sending, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.